Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to cover everything that starts from the excavation being finished. Then we're going to talk about putting the basement in, so the footers and the wall, and then the foundation drain, finishing that. And then part two, we're going to go from the foundation drain to pretty much having the floor poured and the backfill done, and then being ready for framing. So let's get into it. Okay, so the foundation guy is like the footprint layer. He just finished up here, but if you can tell, all the markings, and all the pins and everything, he was able to place down. So all that extra digging, like we had that dig out on the wall, you can see it's because this is where they need to build that buttress wall, and they just have to have the space so that they can actually like walk around the form as they're building it. So that's why they have you do this 5-foot overdig, because even though the wall is only right here, they need all that extra space back there to be able to work and to build those forms. So that's why they have you build the hole so big. But now that he's done, what he does is he comes in and uses that machine, and then it's basically giving him a super precise coordinate on where those pins go on the ground, and they find the center points. So he's finding the centers to like all the corners of the wall, and then the center points to the buttresses. And then he's just driving these little stakes kind of down in here, which you saw him nailing them in that one clip. So he's just marking all those down, then he comes back and spray paints it. But yeah, it only took him about 10-15 minutes, and he had this whole thing knocked out pretty quickly. But this is the first time now that you can actually look at it and you can see resemblance of a floor plan. You're gonna see a little bit of how big each room and each wall and stuff's gonna be, and how big the total space is. So it's kind of cool. This is exciting. But he said that they will most likely come in, and he's seen them like pour and then pull forms off like the same day to then start building doing the walls. So it could run pretty quick. Today is Friday, so nothing's gonna happen today now that this is done, so it'll sit this way for the weekend. But most likely either Monday or Tuesday, they'll come in, build forms, and then pour pretty quick, and then it might take a day or two, I guess, to cure, is what he was telling me. And then they'll be right back out here to do the walls and then have the walls done. So we could very well have this done before Christmas. I think today's the 13th, December 13th. So there could be a wall in this hole, like all the walls could be up before Christmas. At least after Christmas. We'll be back after Christmas, and there will be a full basement with the walls and everything up when I get back from Christmas. So super exciting. Then we just got to put the drains in, floor drains in around the perimeter, the foundation drains. Then we're gonna put the sub pump in over on the corner, and then the floor, the slab on the bottom of the basement, the floor is gonna be the next things that we got to do. So that perimeter drain, and then the slab, and then once that's done, then we start framing. So I think we could potentially see framing start early January, like January 2nd, like as soon as we come back from the new year. So super exciting. Here we are. I just pulled up to property. Nobody's here yet. and it is officially foundation day. So today is the day that they're gonna come and set up the footers for the whole basement. Basically what they did, if you saw on that machine that they have, that little tool, they come in, they measure everything out, they make sure you have enough space in your hole. Then once the measuring guys approve it, then the form build crews come out and they'll build the forms, and then they'll pour the cement, and then they let it sit and cure, and then they strip the boards, and then they do it again, the same thing with the walls. As soon as they start getting here, super exciting, really cool. Can't wait to get things kicked off today. And we're rocking and rolling. They've been working for 10 minutes. George's over here. This is the guy in charge. That's the big boss there. But yeah, 10 minutes, knocked this whole thing out. Pretty good. They got the inspection here in an hour, and then concrete pours in like an hour after that. So they got all the form set up. No, they're just staking it all in so when they pour it doesn't blow out. Yeah. It's George's the one in charge. It's a big dog on scene. So after they're finished building all the forms, then they're going to go around and they're going to mark off what the height is for what the cement needs to be poured to. For our plans, it's 7.5 inches. So he's basically taking this laser level and he's walking it around, and it'll beep whenever he gets at the right height, kind of like the guys we're using for the excavation. Same device. And what it does is it's going to tell them when they're at that 7.5 mark. And then he'll put these nails into the side, and then the guy behind him is going to come with a string line and basically snap lines so that when they pour the cement, they're going to know exactly where that 7.5 mark is, and they won't go any higher than that. This is going to represent kind of like the top line for all the footers across the entire foundation. Then the next thing they're going to do is they're going to look at our plans, and they're going to see what our footers are being called for. In this plan, we have 3 different ones. The standard, unless it's marked otherwise, is going to be 16 inches wide by 7.5 inches thick. Think of your thickness being like the depth, so how deep that footer is. Then anything that's marked with a 24 is going to be 24 inches wide by 7.5 inches thick. And then anything with a 28 is going to be 28 wide by 9.5 thick. So if it's 9.5 and everything is standard at 7.5, they're basically going to have to dig down because the top has to be level across the entire set. So if it's 9.5, then they have to dig down. And that's what these guys are going to be doing here. So they're going to start digging basically anywhere that it's called for these footers to be different. You can see here on our plans, so this is kind of like what it looks like, our structurals. Most of it, right, is going to be everything that's not labeled. Then you can see here how there's the 2 4s and the 24s, and the 24s are actually where it's going to be that first coat, right? So they get a little bit wider there. And then these are the 28s, and these are the 28s where they're wider and deeper. So that's where they have to dig out. Then, after they get everything pretty much dug out there, the next piece that they're gonna have to look at is the pads. We have 3 different pads. And these are the pads. These are basically right in the middle of our basement. And what the pads do is the pads support a steel column that is going to hold up our support beam that'll run through the basement. So it's going to support the support beam for the entire structure. This is what the legend calls for in terms of our foundation pads. If you see here, this one is 36 square inches. This one is 42, and this one is 30. So the 30 is going to fall in this top one, and then the other 2 are going to fall into this one. So they're going to be 11 and a half thick, which means these guys are just going to have to dig these ones out so that they match the proper depth once they get set up. It's pretty cool to watch, pretty cool to see how they do this whole process and get everything nailed in just right. Once they get all the footers set, then what they're going to do is they got to lay their rebar in the footers. So the guys up top are going to be bending it according to what the plans are calling for. And then they're going to be handing it down. And then the guys down below are going to be laying all of this rebar in the footer forms. And the plans call for basically what is required, and that's how they know exactly what to lay from what the legend says. Then inside, what they're going to be doing is once all the steel is down, so once all the rebar is down, these little blocks that you can see inside there, kind of like scattered along, what the blocks are doing is they're holding the rebar up off the ground. It's keeping it elevated so that when you pour the cement, what it's going to do is keep the rebar in the middle of the footer instead of it basically resting on the ground. If it rests on the ground, it doesn't have any structural support. It doesn't provide any value, more or less, to the cement. So it has to be sitting in the middle of the footer for it to provide like that additional structural integrity that's required. And then this guy here is basically just wiring. He's setting some wire over the forms because the cement, when it goes in, it can kind of get crazy. And if they don't do everything they can to keep that very, very, very sturdy, it can like blow the forms out and the forms can fall apart. But yeah, see how this guy, you just place them right underneath, and then you kind of just like tie them onto the rebar, and then it holds. And then you just pour the cement right on top of them, and those little blocks become a part of the footer as well. This is what it looks like when they just lay the rebar down. And then they'll take this little device when they have to overlap them, and basically what it does is it just shoots a like metal tie across the beams, and it ties them together. So just instead of them wrapping it around with their hand a bunch of times, they just take this little gun and it shoots the tie around and then cuts it afterwards. It's really cool. But yeah, that little gun's like $3,200. But at this point, we are ready for inspection. Pumps arrived, get it all set up, get everything ready, and then should have the cement showing up here any minute. Big truck. He's gonna get this boom out. It's gonna go all the way over the pit. See down there. And then they're just gonna go inside there and walk it around and make sure it fills all those forms. But yeah, he's gonna get this all the way extended up, and it's gonna go all the way over the pit so they can walk it in all those forms. Should be about an hour. We'll have footers in the hole, setting. Passed the inspection, no problems. Ready to go. Coming soon. And then we almost forgot this thing. It's called a U for pull, but what it is, it goes inside the foundation and basically just grounds the entire electrical system inside. This is what it looks like when it's finished, and that's it right there in the middle. can see as he's going through here and adding this cement, how much force it has when it comes out, because sometimes it knocks those little tiles over, and you gotta kind of like pick them up. But George here is super strong. This guy's a beast when it comes to moving this hose around. He's basically like adding the fine movements while there's the operator that's obviously like controlling the flow and stuff, and you can see him kind of communicate a little bit of it. He'll put his hand up here and trying to tell the guy, hey, keep moving it. And then as he continues to just like shoot it in, the guy's basically trying to move that arm where George needs it to go, so he doesn't have to like absolutely manhandle the whole thing the whole time. But as he finishes up here, he's kind of like coming up to the end of the forms, and then he's got to just prepare to go. And the next thing he's going to do is he's going to pour those pads that are in the middle of the basement. So he's going to finish up here, and as soon as he gets just enough added, he's going to pretty much launch this thing right over at the pads. And it just kind of shoots and dribbles in the between the two before it gets over there. George is a super cool dude, good player, fun. He was very camera shy at first, but you can see he's so warmed up to it by this point. Yeah, he'll fill up the pads here. Once it gets up to the proper height, then he'll kind of take it and he'll launch it over to the next one. And any of that cement that lands in like the floor, like the rest of it, it's actually kind of fine, because what ends up happening is after these all get poured and hardened and the walls go in and all that stuff, we end up backfilling everything that's in between. So it all just it just gets covered over anyway, and it doesn't really change anything or hurt anything. You'll see him here after this last pad gets filled up. He just called for the turn off, and then he'll just let it shoot right in the floor. And that's totally fine. Just a little bit stronger dirt at that point. And then this is pretty much the end of what it takes to finish the footers. They just got to put these little rebars in there, and what they're gonna end up using is these things that are gonna end up tying into the walls when they pour the walls. And that's really the last step for the footers, and after that it just hardens. And then I wasn't here for this. I was actually out of town. This happened kind of like on December 23rd, so I was back in Michigan visiting family, and most of this coverage is going to be all from the Ring cameras because that's all I had set up. But you can see them dropping the forms off, and then this is them building the forms, putting everything in place, and you can see just how tall those walls are compared to the actual size of the guys. They had to get ladders and stuff to make sure they can fasten the top boards and panels and stuff into place. But yeah, basically what they do is they'll build all these, and then there'll be about an 8-inch gap between the inside panel and the outside panel, and that's what they end up filling with all the cement. And then all the rebars in the middle, you can see the one gap that they leave there so they can get in and out, but that'll end up getting closed off, and then they'll pour. You can see there's the gap. Then this is pour day for the walls. I think we end up using 4 or 5 trucks, but they use the same boom that we did for the footers. You can see them, they start up front, and then we have this like super speed, so they start moving around pretty quickly. But yeah, they basically just have a team. One guy's going to be moving kind of like the cement boom, and then you see the long sticks that they have. All they're trying to do is, the guys with those sticks, they're just trying to vibrate and like move that cement around so that it doesn't like clump up or stop or not spread evenly. Trying to just keep it as like even across the board as possible. Get any air pockets and stuff like that out. And you can see the guys, everybody going through and checking. Just making sure everything's nice and tight. Nothing's blowing out. All right, I am back, and we have a basement. Super cool. Okay, so while I was gone for Christmas, they were able to get the whole foundation done and everything, so that's awesome. Now the next piece is getting the foundation drain done. So I have all of our pipe. You can see I already kind of threw some in there. We have all of our drain pipe, and then in here have all the fittings and stuff in those buckets, and then I have all the waterproofing membrane that's going to go on the walls right there. So this is going to be the next 2 days. I'm going to get all the pipe and stuff laid today, and then get everything painted, and hopefully we have gravel either tomorrow or Saturday. So I'm going to get started with this and start unloading it, and then hopefully get to see kind of what's next.